Hey everyone, welcome to the Be Good and Do Good podcast, a show where we delve into our own unique experiences during our time as missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm your host Jake, here alongside my brother and co-host John. What is going on? We're back.
We're back.
It's been 2.5 months.
It's been way too long.
Wow. It's I guess here we are in 2024. We made
Yes.
it. Not necessarily without incident, but we made it into 2024.
Yeah, it's been a crazy 2023 was crazy. I made it with a degree at the end of it. Woo, woo,
Yeah.
woo, woo.
John,
Yeah.
you are officially done with school. How does it feel?
Good. I actually received a copy of my diploma in the mail like 2 days ago. It was really cool.
Did you get a mini diploma as well?
I didn't get a mini diploma.
I've heard that that's a thing. I've never gotten one, but
when I was going to BYU and I got my diploma from there, I had a mini diploma, so that was cool.
that's awesome.
But no,
Yeah, I don't have one.
this was a regular size diploma, and all we have to do now is frame it.
Are you going to?
Hopefully, just need to buy a good frame.
My diploma is right over, I think it's right in here in this very room. It's not framed. I just left it in like the cover and leaned it up against a wall because I'm not quite as fancy, I guess, but it still looks good.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
But
So, how about you? What's been going on with you in the new year?
well,
And not just the new year.
yeah. I mean, I looked the last time we had recorded or at least posted was at the end of October.
Yeah.
And so since then, I've been to Europe and back. I've been to California and back for Christmas time.
Yeah. I think that was one of the main reasons. I mean, we had bad communication, but also like you went to Europe and that like it stopped us from recording another one, you know.
Yeah, and so we just kept letting it add up. But
Yeah, we let it fall by the wayside. But we're back now and hopefully
yeah,
we're back on track, you know.
yeah,
But it sounded like you had a great time in Europe, you know. You went to Rome, right?
yeah. My wife and I spent about a week or so in Italy and got to explore a little bit of Vienna, Austria as well. But 10 out of 10 recommend going to Rome sometime. The food is absolutely amazing. We had carbonara, actually. Me and my wife had carbonara for dinner a few days ago, just
Yeah.
reminiscing what it was like when we were in Italy and we could have like authentic carbonara at one of the street cafes. And it was just delicious, life-changing experience. Definitely want to continue traveling more,
Mhm.
but I would love to go back to Europe or just anywhere again.
Yeah. I'm not jealous per se, but I mean, it's up there on my list of things to do to go to Austria and see like the birthplace of Mozart and see like the opera houses there and the beautiful
Hmm.
churches. I'm sure you saw some churches while you were in Rome, right?
Oh yeah, they have a church on every street corner. It's basically like Utah, except with Catholic churches instead of Latter-day Saint churches.
Yeah, exactly. But that's really cool. I mean, I one of my other all-time goals is to sing somewhere in Europe, whether it be in a choir or just my own voice somewhere.
Just
Like,
sing,
you know,
just go on a street corner and open up a guitar case and start
no,
jamming out.
no, to sing in a church, to hear the acoustics that are found in those beautiful, like concave, beautiful churches, you know.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to go to St. Peter's Basilica, and it's probably the largest church I've ever seen. Might be one of the largest churches in the world, at least in terms of like the chapel size, because the chapel as a whole is like the size of a small mountain. It's like it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was crazy, and I can only imagine somebody in the center of that chapel singing. You'd be able to hear it throughout the
I'm
entire
sure
hallway.
I'm sure you also saw like a bunch of beautiful artwork. I'm sure that like inspired you as an artist because like
Yeah, no, we got to see, obviously, one of my favorite aspects of it was the Trevi Fountain,
oh yeah,
which was honestly, I can't even remember who did it, but it was probably the most beautiful thing that I saw, just because the fountain is like this light, this like kind of off-white color marble,
yeah,
and it's built into the side of a building. It was carved into the side of a building, and the water is like this beautiful, like turquoise-ish, like aquamarine color
Yeah,
because of like the tile that's underneath the water. And so
that's so cool.
that light stone, like contrasting off of the blue water was just breathtaking. So
Did you get to have your Lizzie McGuire moment?
um I mean, me and Rachel kissed in front of the fountain. I
I
guess
think
that
they also
qualifies.
like don't they like throw coins in front like back like
I
they
know they do that in When in Rome,
when in Rome.
but I don't remember if they do that in Lizzie
Lizzie
McGuire. I
McGuire.
should know. I watched it before I went to Rome, so I should remember. But um, we did
Yeah.
do that as well. If that is what Lizzie McGuire does in fact do, we did do that.
I think that's like one of my things. Like if I'm watching a movie or a TV show that's set in a different place, like right now we're watching Sarah and I are watching a reality TV show that's set in New York, and I'm like, oh, if I went to New York, this would be how it looks. And like, it'd be really cool, honestly,
Yeah.
to see those places and be familiarized with the places that are in the places that you've never seen before. So
Yeah, it makes a difference, like, because obviously you hear about Rome and you hear about New York City. Like so many movies and TV shows are set in those super, super famous cities. And
yeah.
so I got to go to New York City as well last year,
Hmm.
and it
Yeah,
kind of helped to solidify, I guess, some of the images in my mind, and been like, "Oh, okay, so subway cars are actually this big. I thought they were a lot smaller or a lot bigger." Or I got to
sure.
see the Empire State Building and see how big that is relative to, because you see it obviously dozens and dozens of times throughout the year just by watching any TV show. Everything is set in New York City.
Yeah,
So, it was
for sure.
cool. Definitely
Uh,
recommend that as well. Traveling is one of those things that I've always wanted to do, and this last year was one of the few years that I felt good about the amount of time I spent traveling. So
Good,
we
good.
got to take advantage of it before we start having children. So that's what everybody tells
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or you could travel with your children, which is a whole beast in and of itself, right?
Yeah. Brianna, our sister, would know better than we would, but it's
Yeah,
easier said than done.
yeah. So, I mean, thinking about what we were talking about on the last podcast, which was set in like the middle of October,
Yeah.
you left us with a huge cliffhanger of something creepy that happened to you on your mission, and we were like so excited because it was happening during October, and then we just like put it off until mid-January.
Oh gosh. Yeah. It's probably not going to be quite as creepy now as it would have been in, Halloween time or
Yeah,
Dia de los Muertos or whatever time it would have been when we had posted it. But
we could just tell our podcast listeners to listen to this one during
during
Halloween
Halloween
time.
time, yeah, we'll put in the title just like Halloween episode. Although it's not really that creepy. I don't know. You guys will have to let us know how creepy it actually is. But he's referring to what I call the Lewisberry Stalker.
Oh geez.
Um, which also I have before I start talking, you guys may have noticed my voice sounds a little bit deeper than it normally does. I am kind of getting over a cold, so maybe it'll add a little bit to the mystique of this story, just that my voice is like, it was a dark and stormy night and the Lewisberry Stalker was on the prowl. But you'll have to forgive me and be patient with me as I tell this story. But
Darkness falls across the land.
what a good song.
Exactly. Yeah, thriller, right?
Thriller, yeah. And I also need to preface this story with a lot of this information is probably not correct. It did happen to me, but it also happened to other people, and so I haven't told this story in depth since I was on my mission. And it's one of those things that I didn't write in my emails to my mom because I didn't
Uh-huh.
want her to worry about it.
Yeah.
Because obviously no mom wants to read that there's this stalking situation going on with her child when they're on the mission. I was
Yeah.
not the one who got stalked, fortunately. Um, but without further ado, let's get into the legend of the Lewisberry Stalker.
All
Um,
right.
uh,
I'm ready. I'm ready.
I don't think I fully told
Well,
you this story
you
either.
haven't told me, so I want to pull up my popcorn, start munching down while you tell me.
Yes.
Hopefully,
Absolutely.
hopefully not get too many jump scares in,
I'll wink at you before a particularly scary part, just so that you can be prepared. Although sometimes that makes it more scary, even when you are expecting it.
Exactly. Yep.
Um,
All right, I'm ready for this. Go for it.
okay, so for those of you who have served missions, you're probably familiar with referrals that come to you from church headquarters. Church headquarters will send you referrals that they might have received on, at the time it was called Mormon.org. I think
Yeah.
now it's called ComeUntoChrist.org.
Uh-huh.
Um, but people who are interested about the church or who have found it through Google or whatever it might be can go onto that website and request, whether it be missionaries to come teach them, whether it be a copy of the Bible, a copy of the Book of Mormon,
Mhm.
all of that stuff. And so for these sister missionaries who are in my ward, so I'll just go ahead and uh, I guess describe it as, I was serving at the time in Lewisberry, and me and my companion, Elder White, were in the bike area. So it was a much
Mhm.
smaller area, an area that could be uh,
Covered by a
reached,
bike
yeah, that could be covered by a bike, whereas the rest of the ward was covered by two sister missionaries
in a car.
in a car.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we worked with these other sister missionaries pretty frequently, obviously, because they were in the same ward as us. Sometimes, they would need help with something, or we would need help with something. And but anyways, the sister missionaries in the ward received a referral. I can't remember if it was a Bible or a Book of Mormon referral where they requested a Book of Mormon, but we'll say that it was a Book of Mormon referral. And it was from somebody named Catherine. Um,
Okay.
and anybody who served a mission knows that referrals are just absolute gold. Anytime you get a referral, whether it be through the church website or from another member or whatever, you treat it as gold, and you're supposed to contact them within 24 hours. It's like the protocol.
Yeah.
Um, and so as soon as they get the referral, they're like, heck yeah, somebody actually wants to talk to us. Let's go ahead and reach out to them. So they reach out to them through text message
Yeah.
and set something up to be able to meet in person. Um, and uh, inevitably, the time arrives for them to be able to meet Catherine in person. But she didn't show up. I can't remember where they waited, but they waited there for a while, texting Catherine and whatnot. And Catherine's like, "Oh, I'll be there, I'll be there, I'll be there," but she never shows up.
Yeah.
So they're a little bit disappointed, and um, they reschedule for another time. They're like, I mean, this type of stuff happens to missionaries all the time. And so, they continued to try to teach her the gospel through text message. For whatever reason, phone call wasn't working at the time.
Yeah.
Um, and so they set up another appointment with her. And once again, Catherine didn't show up. So super disappointing for the sisters. Um, but they at least felt that they needed to give this woman her due diligence to receive the gospel. But they also started to notice some like weird, interesting things. Like they would text Catherine, and Catherine would, want to talk a little bit more about the sisters than she would about the actual gospel that they're trying to teach her. Which is not unusual. Sometimes people are
Yeah.
just looking for friends rather than the gospel, and so they noticed that, but they were just thinking, okay, maybe when we meet this girl in person, things will be different.
Okay.
But they were at least a little bit nervous, to the point that they reached out to me and my companion, Elder White,
Gotcha.
and they said, um, we have this person that we're teaching. We haven't been able to meet with her in person. We don't really know, or don't know anything about her other than she's a referral. We haven't really been able to communicate super well. We're meeting her at the local library. We're wondering if you and Elder White would be willing to come with us to this lesson, since it's a
Yeah.
public place or whatever, and just to kind of be there as, eyes and ears, and as I guess like a physical presence, just in case it ended up going not how they expected. It was not Catherine or whatever it might be.
Yeah, because it sounds kind of like I mean, I haven't seen your story. I haven't looked at it because I wanted
Oh,
to be
okay.
surprised. I wanted to be surprised, but it sounds, at least, depending on how much this person asked about the sisters, like it sounds like someone that's like too interested in the sisters instead of the
Yeah,
gospel.
unusually interested for
Unusually,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and so we agreed, and so we met at the local library with the sisters. I think we showed up like a good 30 minutes or something ahead of time, and
Yeah.
walked the grounds and kept our eyes and ears open for anything suspicious or anything that we could do in order to help. And inevitably, the time comes for the lesson, and guess who hasn't shown up yet? Catherine, of course.
Yeah.
And we hadn't seen anything or noticed anything, but one of the sisters decides, okay, enough is enough. We're going to give her a call. So
They
they
hadn't
call.
called her yet?
I think they had, but they never got in contact. But this time they, I guess, maybe felt prompted to call, or
Okay.
just because me and Elder White were there, they felt like they needed to
Yeah.
call. Um, but so they call, and Catherine answers for once.
Okay.
Um, and immediately you notice there's like just kind of static on the phone, and
Uh-huh.
then one of the sisters is trying to be like, Catherine, like, hey, it's the sisters, like, are you there? And Catherine responds, but kind of like in a deeper, like gravelly voice, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And
Some white noise over there, a
exactly,
little
like,
creepy.
it's definitely something a little creepy, like, and so they keep trying to talk to her,
A little red
but
flag.
yeah, but she hangs up and then texts immediately afterwards and is like, "Hey, sorry, like my phone is really strange. Um, I'm sorry that I couldn't meet with you or whatever." And then she says something like a little bit weird. She's like, um, "I apologize to the sister with the beautiful, like blonde, crisscross hair."
Uh-huh.
And one of the sisters had blonde hair and she had braided her hair that day.
Yeah.
And then she talks about the other sister and describes what she's wearing at the time.
Oh, geez.
And so we are freaked out because we're
Yeah.
like, okay, she's not here, but she knows exactly what you guys look like today. Like
As if she's around
as
somewhere.
if she's around, she's hiding, peering behind a tree or something with
Yeah.
binoculars. Like something definitely needs to be done. So we we encourage the sisters to drop her.
Yeah.
Sees all communication with her. It might just be a creepy, weird guy who has too much time on his hands.
Yeah.
And they drop her and just say, "Hey, we haven't been able to meet up." I don't even know if they tell her that they drop her,
Yeah.
or what it
Usually
was.
you wanna just, like, do
Sometimes you
it
just kind of cease contact.
stealthily, or yeah, cease contact, yeah.
Exactly. So, anyways, a week or so goes by, and we thought that we had heard everything that we were going to about this situation, but the sisters once again started to notice a car. I can't remember. I feel like it was a brown car. I can't remember exactly what model it was, but a car that they had seen frequently throughout their days.
Yeah.
Um, During their different appointments and when they were tracting and stuff, they saw the same car. And I don't know if, it was a coincidence or if it was the same exact car and there actually was somebody following them, but they were starting to get very nervous about it.
Probably not a coincidence, but,
Yeah, who
who
knows?
knows?
I mean, sisters unfortunately have to deal with this type of thing a lot more than elders do.
Yeah.
And they got to the point where they were really afraid and didn't want to go back to their house because they didn't want to potentially lead the stalker to their place of, the place that they
Residents.
lived there. Yeah, their
Yeah.
place of residence. And then who knows what would happen when they got there.
Yeah.
Um, and another interesting thing that happened during this time is The sisters in one of our other areas, one of the sisters had gone home for medical reasons, and so it was towards the end of the transfer.
Yeah.
And so uh, her companion had actually gone to be with the Lewisberry sisters,
Yeah.
um, just for the week or so that they had left of the transfer before they can figure out what to do. And so there was actually three sisters now, instead of the two that were originally there at the library with us. Um,
Huh.
so she leaves her area, goes with the Lewisberry sisters, and gets immediately thrown into this kind of sketchy situation.
Yeah, definitely.
So I did not envy her. Anyways, rather than go home, they decide to call our mission president, President Bednar, and explain the situation to him. President Bednar takes all of it very seriously, as is his job, and he needs to protect these sisters who are under his stewardship. So I remember it was really late at night. I was getting ready to go to bed. It was probably like 9:50 or something. So I was kneeling down by my bed, saying my prayer, getting ready to go to sleep,
Uh-huh.
when Elder White comes in, and he had just gotten off the phone with President Bednar, unbeknownst to me,
Yeah.
um, and said, "Elder, you have to get up, like get dressed. We're not staying here tonight." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "President Bednar just called, and the sisters are actually going to be staying here at our apartment tonight. And
Uh-huh.
me and Elder White, are going to be going to the other elders who were in our district, and we were going to be staying with them."
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm like kind of disoriented because I had just woken up, or not woken up, but like was getting sleepy and thought I was like winding down for the night.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, only to find out that they were coming. So I
Yep.
get ready and everything, and the sisters come to our apartment, which is like a big no-no for mission rules for
Yep.
anything. One, you're not supposed to let anybody in your apartment who's not a missionary.
Yeah.
Uh, well, I guess who's not on exchanges,
Yep.
and definitely don't let any member of the opposite sex in your apartment.
Yeah.
But obviously, we had special permission from President Bednar, and so the sisters come, and they are very visibly distraught
Sure.
and are crying and just super frantic about, and just very nervous and freaking out, which is totally understandable.
Yeah.
Um, and we give them a blessing. Each of the sisters a blessing to help them and to comfort them.
Yeah.
And the other elders come and pick me and Elder White up, and we start driving. To the other elders' apartments because we're going to be sleeping there that night before a
Yeah.
more permanent solution was figured out.
Uh-huh.
Um, so we had just left the sister's apartment, and we're just hoping and praying that they were okay. There's only so much that we as elders can do for them.
Yep.
So we're in the process of driving. Uh, we're in the process of driving to the elder's apartment when we get a phone call.
Uh-huh.
And just before I explain what happened with this phone call, I do need to share a little tidbit. We've actually talked about it in the past on this podcast. We have these things called transfer journals,
Yeah.
um, where at the end of a transfer, obviously you don't know who's going to be staying or who's going to be leaving or whatever it might be, but you've spent some time with these missionaries in your district, and uh, it's kind of like a yearbook where you give them your journal, and it's their opportunity to write down like, "Hey, it was so good getting to know you. Like, you've been a huge testimony builder for me, blah blah," all of that stuff.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so one of the sisters had brought her transfer journal to district council the previous weekend, or the previous week.
Yeah.
And so we had all had our opportunities to sign it or whatever. And anyways, the sister, as we're driving to the elder's apartment, calls and is freaking out. And she says, "You guys need to turn around. You guys need to come right back here."
Yeah.
and we're like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? So the elder who's driving, like whoosh, just like flips, like does a U-turn. We're like
Yeah.
halfway to their apartment at this point, and
Oh, geez.
starts, driving on the other side of the street. We're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Are they there? Like, stay
Yeah.
on the phone. Anyways, Elder White is on the phone with her and is trying to figure out through her nerves, like what is going down. And she's like, Catherine left me a note. And we're like, what? She's like, Catherine wrote in my transfer journal. She left me a note.
Oh my
And we're like,
gosh.
what? Like, how, when has she been like
In
close
your
enough to
apartment.
like,
Yeah.
to leave a note? Like, this is really scary. Anyways,
Yeah. So
anyways,
creepy.
Elder White hears this and is like, sister, like, calm down. Like, it wasn't Catherine. And the sister's like, no, no, like it's signed Catherine. Like, it's here. It's in the back of my transfer journal. I was just looking through it. And Elder White's like, sister, like that wasn't Catherine. Like, that was me. I wrote I wrote the note.
What?
And so,
Oh my
like, in the
gosh.
back of her journal, it was like, I remember it was like a brown bound journal. And so, like,
Yeah.
on the inside cover, there was like brown paper on the inside cover,
Uh-huh.
just like how on the outside it was like leather or something.
Yeah.
And uh, on the back inside cover of the transfer journal, Elder White had written using like a black pen, like like what was intended to be like a prank or a joke, like, hello, sister. Like, it's so nice to finally meet you after watching you for all this time. Like, blah, 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 blah. Signed, Catherine. Right. And,
That's like one of the sickest pranks I've ever heard in my life.
and, and,
Oh, man.
it was like with the black pen, so you couldn't really see it super well. Like,
Yeah.
it was black pen on brown paper, so it was very faded, like, and obviously wasn't intended to be seen for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And um yeah, Elder White apparently had done it as a joke, because I guess at that time when we had signed the transfer journals, it hadn't quite escalated to the point that it had now. And they kind of, Catherine was almost like an
A
inside
joke.
joke. Yeah,
Yeah.
like an inside joke, or just something that we would bring up as a joke.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
and so he explains to her, the situation that he had written it. But by the time they're done explaining, we're back to our apartment. Um, and so the sisters got to I guess share their disapproval of Elder White's decision of writing this note, because they
Yes.
were already freaked out at the
Rightly
time.
so.
Yeah, and I have to include, just in defense of Elder White, this was very uncharacteristic of him.
Okay.
I mean, he liked his jokes just like anybody, but I've talked in the past, he's one of the best missionaries I ever knew, and was
Yeah.
very on task, very valiant, super good guy. This will just happen not to be his proudest moment. And so,
Yeah.
anyways, what ended up happening is nothing really with the sisters. They were safe throughout the night despite not being able to sleep very well. And I know that one of the sisters slept right up against the doorway, um, out of fear,
Yeah.
because she didn't want anybody to come into the door without them knowing.
Yeah.
Um, and so inevitably what ended up happening is the sisters ended up going into the other area that the elders were in, the drive elders that picked us up. So they switched to what's called the Camp Hill ward. That was the
Yeah.
area. And then the elders who were in the Camp Hill ward ended up coming to the Lewisberry Drive area, um, for, safety purposes and whatnot. And so uh, that's essentially the end of the story. We never found out much more about who Catherine was and what her intents were, but fortunately, no one was physically harmed, and and maybe
Yeah.
a little psychologically,
Yes.
harmed as a result of all of this fear that was
Y
going around. But
yeah, for
uh,
sure.
Catherine to this day remains elusive. and we don't know what happened with her, or if somebody was in fact following them or anything like that. But definitely a very, very interesting part, an interesting week and a half of my mission, having sisters
Yeah.
stay in my apartment and, driving, to and from apartments at like midnight,
Yep.
trying to figure out the whereabouts of this Catherine character. So, um, but anyways, what did you think, John? Was it was it as
Oh,
twisty turny as you were expecting?
it was pretty freaky. If that happened to me, I mean, I'm not a sister. I mean,
Yeah.
I know a sister would be a lot more scared, but I'm listening to this story. It's like I wouldn't want that happening to me
No,
on the
like,
mission.
yeah, I have so much like pity for them and having to experience this situation. Like,
Yeah.
and like I said, it happens to sisters more often than you would think.
Yep.
Sisters have to deal with so many creepy old men on the mission. Um,
Which is
s-
probably why. Well, no, I was gonna say 21 was the age. Now it's 19, right? But I
yeah,
mean, a lot
I
older.
mean, it's a big part of the reason why the rules are the way that they are. You
Yeah.
don't be alone with any member of the opposite sex. Don't be
Yeah.
alone with kids. Don't be, you know, and they are sucky rules sometimes because you want to teach people of the opposite sex who are genuinely interested in the gospel, but these rules are there to protect us and
Yeah.
and prevent situations where things like this can happen. And so obviously not the most heartwarming story, but I feel like it kind of highlights a larger problem with just idiots
Yeah.
who take advantage of, what we're trying to do, which is share the good news of the gospel, and twist it into something for their own creepy benefit.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so very happy that nothing ended up happening to these sisters. I'm still
Yeah,
close to them
that's
to this
good.
day. Like we're good friends, and now we joke about Catherine. But then maybe
Yeah,
wasn't
but
the
I
best time
yeah,
to
but
joke
I
about it.
I doubt you write something in that sister's journal again and say, "This is Catherine."
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't advise that. It was a little bit humorous at the time because my companion never did anything wrong. So I was a little bit like, oh, finally, he didn't make the wisest decision in that aspect, but he was
Yeah,
he was a great guy.
yeah. Speaking of, like, things that are I mean, like, disheartening or just things that happen on your mission, have you ever had, someone on your mission, like, get a piece of paper, put it on their door, and say something like to the effect of, well, this is what somebody did. They said, "Members from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are not welcome here. Please stop calling, or I will call the police."
Oh my
Did you ever
gosh.
did you ever have someone write a sign on their door and say
No.
not to come? Because that
It's
happened to me,
like,
like, twice or 3 times on my
really?
mission. Yeah.
That's really sad. It sounds like it's like Halloween and they're like putting a sign on their door saying they have no more candy in their house.
Yeah, and this
But
was this was somebody that we were teaching, and so, like, the thing about this that I didn't like is it was kinda like, what did we even do to this person? Did we, like
yeah,
did they bump into somebody and have a bad experience? Did we do something? It's just like,
yeah.
without that follow-up, it kinda um, leaves it without closure?
It's hard to know whether you did something, if you could have changed something, and 9 out
Yeah.
of 10 times, it's just that people it's not our fault.
Yeah, I
This
know.
is what I should say, people associate us with the church, they don't necessarily aren't trying to be mean to us as individuals,
Yeah, and you can
but
only hope for the best for these individuals, but, like, um, yeah, you can only hope for the best.
was
And usually it's
texting
not us.
texting probably wasn't a big thing while you were a missionary, maybe?
No, we just had those phones that you had to, like, press the numbers to text at the time.
Yeah, so not quite as widespread. Because I mean, people texted us all the time saying to stop visiting them, but
Yeah.
never did we have a situation where they had to leave a note on their door.
Yeah, it happened to me, I remember at least in 2 areas, and this happened to me this week, so, yeah, definitely. But some lighter news from the week that I read about, our boy Doyle Warner got a baptismal date,
Awesome.
and
Finally.
the hardest thing was he needed to quit smoking. And so there
Yeah.
were this is a hard thing for anybody that has a problem with smoking or just a smoking addiction. And it's not easy. I mean, with any addictions are just hard to overcome in general. And
Mhm.
so um Doyle and us came up with a smoking program, a stop smoking program. I think, if I remember correctly, we had like a booklet that we gave him, and it said stuff like eating hearty breakfast every day after you quit smoking to like get rid of the taste of nicotine in your mouth, that and the want to do it, and
Uh-huh.
using cinnamon flavor mouthwash, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And um and we decided to fast for him all day on Sunday,
Mhm.
which, let me be honest, I hated fasting as a missionary.
It's rough because
It was
you
always the hardest thing to do.
well, because usually when you fast after being a missionary or before, you can just kinda spend all day at home and just rest, so you don't have to think or do quite as much, but as missionaries, correct me if I'm wrong, but you work just as hard, if not harder, on Sundays than anybody else.
Yeah,
And so you're going, tracting, doing everything
exactly.
physically and
Yeah,
mentally that you would normally do. So it's not a walk in the park.
it isn't, not at all. And it was always, whenever a missionary, like one of my companions, suggested fasting, I would always like do an inward groan, and I'd be like, no, why?
It's rough.
I know it's a good thing, but it's hard. And it's like thinking about Jesus whenever he had to fast, like he had to walk around all the time. And that's one of the things that we had to do as missionaries, either ride a bike or walk around all the time. And so like fasting would have been a really difficult thing. And he had to fast for 40 days and 40 nights.
Yes.
So yeah, it's an earthly weakness that is hard to overcome, but I mean, it has a lot of great benefits.
Mhm.
So, and he was, Doyle Warner was reading the Book of Mormon, which we were happy about, and also, he was attending the 3 hours of church, because this was during 3 hour church.
Back in the dark
This,
ages.
yeah, um, this was not always easy to have 3 hour church, but it was
Yeah.
fun. So, I mean, yeah, this is what Doyle Warner was going through, which is great. Um, Another thing that happened during this week was, my companion elder elephant had been called to be our district leader,
Okay.
and I love elder elephant. He is great at a lot of things, and he has like this commanding presence whenever he's teaching, and
Uh-huh.
so
I mean,
he
he's an elephant. It's hard to ignore him.
exactly, definitely. Name chosen wisely.
Yeah.
And so, his lesson that he taught us, there were four of us elders. I want to name these elders, but there were four elders that it was just me and two other elders and Elder Elephant that were in this district. And he taught us the importance of Book of Mormon and getting people committed. And so
Okay.
one of the strategies that he used is we had to extend commitments to the other elders. And
Okay.
so I thought, the reading back on this, I didn't remember this at all. And that's probably what's going to happen with this reading my journal, is remembering things or not remembering the things that I've done.
Yeah.
But with one of the elders, Elder Jones, we extended the commitment of eating ice cream from a gallon every day.
Like a gallon of ice cream or just eating from a gallon?
Eating from a gallon.
Okay, that's a little bit more manageable.
By
Still
the
not
way,
advised.
these commitments are all fake. Like, it was like extending fake commitments just to practice extending commitments.
Oh, I thought you were saying that, like, you actually committed them to do these things and you followed up the next week to see if they had.
No, no, it was just extending fake commitments just to practice extending commitments in lessons, you know?
Okay, what were the other ones?
So, Elder Curry, who's like this big buff guy, he was a Canadian, and we extended a commitment for him to buy plane tickets to Alaska.
As one
Uh,
does?
uh, I'm trying to remember what the joke was with mine, and I'll tell you what I think it is, but they extended the commitment to me to buy page protectors,
I
and
don't
I
even
think
know what that is. Like
you
the covers? Like
yeah,
the
like a plastic cover that you put a page
put in like a binder and
in a binder, uh-huh.
okay, yeah, no, I know what you're talking
I
about.
think the joke was is that I had, like, a lot of music or something, and
Okay.
so I had to, like, go buy some page protectors for my music, you know?
Gotcha, okay.
And then I didn't remember the joke at all for Elder Elephant, but his was to use shoe polish with an interesting British scent.
So it smells like fish and chips or
Something like that, who knows?
well, he might have the hardest one of all of you guys because I have no idea if there is even shoe polish that exists that has British
Has
scent.
has a scent that yeah, exactly. So,
You guys
I
were
thought
just setting him up for failure.
I know. Oh, man, but I thought that was a funny read from this week's happenings. And then once again, our bishop asked us, me and Elder Elephant, to give talks in church.
Of course, you're missionaries. That's all we
So,
do.
yeah, so, I got up and well, I was reading about it and I I said in the journal that I had no idea what I was gonna talk about really, and it was just really hard to figure it out, so I asked Elder Elephant for a blessing to help me feel confident in what I was gonna talk about,
Mhm.
and so, the next day, I started talking about stuff, so this is Elder Elephant talking to a missionary after my talk. He's like, Elder Gonzalez like totally rebuked the war and their home teaching. You should have been here at our first district meeting. He rebuked us because of the way we were singing.
That's right, I remember you telling me about that.
So
You
I
are
don't
just developing this reputation as
I
one who is holier than thou.
yeah, I must have had just like a rebuke type of
I
blood in
mean,
my
we're
bones.
we're called to preach repentance unto this generation, and you took that literally.
Yeah. So
That's funny.
home teaching must not have been good in the ward that I was in, and so I was just like, "You
You guys
better get
suck.
on it. Come on, guys."
Yeah.
But anyways, so those were the different things that happened that week, and I thought it was pretty funny. Funny stuff for sure.
What a week for both of us, man.
Yeah.
It's, sometimes you just gotta rebuke the Lord, um, and that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, I think that's a good segue into our nugget section of the podcast. Shall we go ahead and delve into those, starting with mine?
Go for it.
So I had the scriptural nugget this week, inspired by my wife, as it usually is. We're reading and come follow me right now from First Nephi. Lehi's vision is what we've kind of been covering, and we were reading about the iron rod, which
Mhm.
I've always been fascinated with, just because I love Lehi's vision, the symbolism behind it. It's just such an easy thing to talk about and wonder about and ponder, and she shared a little tidbit with me that I had never heard before, coming from the scripture of First Nephi 8, verse 19. It says, "And I beheld a rod of iron, and it extended along the bank of the river and led to the tree by which I stood." And she says that she had been talking to somebody once or something, and expressed that she thought that it was weird that the iron rod was right along the bank of the river,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Just because we imagine the rod on the path, and then the river apparently
To
is
the
is
side
is
somewhere.
right next to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the side
Yeah,
somewhere, but
somewhere
not
far off, but
but
not right
not right
along the
along the bank, right?
yeah.
So she said that she thought that that was strange. Like, why would the Lord allow that river to be right there, right next to, the covenant path, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, and I can't remember if she came up with this or if somebody else mentioned it to her, but she said that um, the rod of iron is there along the bank of the river, not because the Lord wants us to necessarily fall off the path and get lost and, into the river, but rather to provide us with support and strength and enable us to be able to grab the rod once we've fallen in the river to get back up. Um,
Oh, that's
and to
cool.
me, I imagined, when you're swimming, like oftentimes there'll be like a ladder that comes out of the swimming pool, and you need to grab these iron bars or metal bars to be able to heave yourself out of the water. Because
Yeah,
if you try to do that, if you try to go up to the edge without one of those things, oftentimes you have to like push yourself out, and I don't have a ton of upper body strength. So for me, that's easier said than done. And it's a lot easier when you have those bars to be able to hold on to kind of lift yourself out.
for sure.
Um, and so I thought that was super cool. How one of the purposes of the iron rod is not only to represent the word of God, but to enable us and strengthen us to find our way back to the path, right? Even after we've fallen and I guess what's the word that I'm looking for? Just
Lost our way.
we've lost our way and fell victim to one of the adversary's cruel tricks.
Yeah,
And so as the iron rod representing, the scriptures and the words of the prophets and that type of thing, I think that it's a natural correlation between the two, that when we've lost our way and when we need to find our way back to the covenant path, what's going to help us get there is the scriptures and personal revelation, as well as revelation from the brethren. And so I just thought that was a really cool thing that I had never heard before. And obviously that story's been talked to death because it's right at the very beginning of the Book of Mormon. But I love being able to learn these new things about and from the Book of Mormon that have otherwise eluded me.
yeah, and that goes along with my preach my gospel nugget. Actually, you know, choosing to follow God by holding on to the rod is another word. Another word for that is making commitments with Him and covenants with
Hmm.
Him. And so,
Yeah.
my preach my gospel nugget is about commitment, especially since we talked about this weird commitments that we made at our district meeting that one day.
Yeah.
But here is what it says about commitment. It says, commitment means choosing a course of action and following through on that choice. Consistently acting on truths of the gospel leads to conversion. Conversion is a change in a person's beliefs, heart, and a life to accept and follow God's will. It is a conscious decision to become a disciple of Christ. Conversion occurs as people exercise faith in Christ, repent of their sins, are baptized, receive the gift of the Holy Ghost, and endure to the end. The Lord and his prophets refer to this change as a spiritual rebirth. The Savior's atonement makes conversion possible, and the Holy Ghost brings about this mighty change of heart. So, I mean, this is also important to January 1st, which just passed 24 days ago. Making different commitments to change ourselves for the better and to do a different course of action than what we've been normally doing, or like following the natural man.
Hmm.
But doing those things like reading our scriptures, which um, brings us closer to Heavenly Father and um, helps us become more and more converted to the gospel of Jesus Christ. And then, like, you're like the vision of the tree of life is enduring to the end on the course to the tree. So
Hmm. Awesome, brother. Thanks for
yeah.
sharing that. And with that, I just wanted to go ahead and pose a question to our listeners. Something that I thought about before the show that I think kind of ties into what we were talking about in relation to the Lewisberry Stalker. Not to bring it back up, but um, I feel like those of us who have served missions have all had experiences where we haven't necessarily told our parents about them. This qualifies. The Lewisberry Stalker qualifies for me. I didn't want to talk to my mom about that because I didn't want to worry her. But for you, what was something on the mission that you were afraid to write home to your mom or dad or girlfriend or whatever it might be about? So we want to hear from you guys. Please feel free to reach out to us through some of the methods that my brother is going to list right now.
Yeah, so we're really excited to have come back after these last 2.5 months to have shared
Woohoo!
our different stories with you. And we just loved being missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so if you'd like to reach out to us, you can. We'll answer the emails. Just reach out to us at begooddogoodpod@gmail.com. And you can also watch us on YouTube at youtube.com/@begooddogoodpod. Also, please rate us on Spotify or YouTube, or like follow us and leave a like and subscribe, etc. Leave comments.
Smash that subscribe button.
Everything that
Yes.
falls underneath that. And we thank you so much for being with us today. And remember to be good and do good.
Yeah.